Hello YouTube, I'm back again with another video. This is going to be, as you can tell by the thumbnail, this is going to be a duel between Brand Despia as well as Kashtira. So obviously I'm playing Kashtira, as you can tell. But one thing I noticed is our decks are actually a unique variant. We're playing out, trying some different card choices to essentially make the duel more interesting. So instead of 3 Theoses, I'm actually just playing 2, because I feel as a card called Planet Path Finder. You tribute it to add a field spell from your deck. So essentially, you're already playing a lot of Theos if you're including the Planet Pathfinder, but I'm just only playing one copy because I don't find playing more than one, playing more than 2 Theos is necessary, because it's not that it's a brick. It's a very good card actually, but the thing is, it requires a target on the field. So if you don't draw into any Kashtira monsters, it does not obviously can't resolve. And if you activate Theosis and your opponent changes to a card effect, especially if they decide to remove the target, Theosis loses a target and then it does not resolve. So what I mean is, if they remove the Fenrir or Unicorn, for example, they gain control of it, banish it, and then Theosis won't resolve. And it doesn't come in clutch because the biggest clutch cards in this game are in Kashtira is usually Birth, Fenrir, Pressured Planet, the Pathfinder that I mentioned, and Unicorn. That's how it is. So the reason why I banished Birth with Rise Heart's effect, because you see, you'll notice I'm about to retrieve it afterwards. After he banishes the top 3 because of Rise Heart's effect, and then eventually becomes a level 7. And this is where I retrieve Birth with using the Scarecrow's effect. When Theos is banished, I get to retrieve one of my banished Kashtira cards besides itself. So I already retrieved my Birth, and I managed to summon a bunch of monsters just in case. As you see right now, I'm going to go into Kashtira and then Diablosis. So Diablosis effect, I'm pretty sure you guys are aware, which probably get banned either way. So I get to banish one of his extra cards face down, and on resolution, when that effect resolves, if one of his face down cards, one of the cards that he owns is banished face down, I get to banish up to the the top cards of his deck up to the number of banished face down cards. So banished face down cards, they have to 4. So essentially, I banish another 4. So this card essentially is destroying the opponent's deck. So just this one card, it's on its own pretty much, which is people wondering why they hate Kashtira and why this card should be banned, because you're literally banishing a card from their extra deck face down. On top of this deck heavily relies on banishing cards face down, especially if it involves the opponent. So he had 4 banished face down cards, and after I already banished one of his cards with Duel's effect, I'm able to chain with his second effect, where depending on the number of banished face down cards he has, I get to banish the top cards face down equal to that amount, the one depending on the number of banished face down cards that he owns. And during standby, I'll use Shangra's effect to summon another Fenrir just in case. So the reason why I'm writing about the token is that it's locking the zone, because since I banished a card, or a card that he owns face down, I get to use Shangra's effect in response, or as a trigger effect to target one of his zones, and he can't use the zone while this card's face up. So still main phase 1 for my opponent, as he's waiting he plays Dark Ruler, but the good thing, I take no battle damage. The only card I can respond to at this point is Ash Blossom, so I gotta be careful and to use it wisely. He summons Ecclesia, he'll tribute, I let him off the hook with that effect. He'll summon out the Albaz, I'll discard 1 card to fuse using my Shangira. Then he'll go into Mirror Jade. He'll use Mirror Jade's effect to banish my Diablosis. Then he'll special summon Spriggan's Kit. I give him the thumbs up. I said that's fine. But he's forced to put one card from his hand to the bottom of his deck. He'll play Brand Fusion. But in response, I'm going to chain with Ash Blossom. He's going to use Mercury's effect, cool. So it's negated. But then I'll use the trigger effect of Birth. So after his Brand Fusion resolves, I'll be able to banish 3 cards from his graveyard face down. And I only go after the ones that I can tell that are basically viable in the graveyard, that will be able to activate in the graveyard, that he will be able to benefit off of. So I make sure to go after those cards. What you see is either, which you should be already aware of, which shouldn't be either, it's these 3, which I'm going to confirm with you guys: Mercarrier, Albion, and Ecclesia. So he won't be able to get any of those graveyard effects for this turn. And for that, even if one of them was to be banished face down, they cannot be able to activate their effect while banished because they have to be face up in order to resolve. So that way you confirm the effect. That way, that's the only way the opponent can confirm that he's able to use the effect. But if it's face down, there's no way of confirming the monster because it has to be revealed in order for you to essentially activate the card. Like whether it's in grave or on field. But it all depends on the card effects and the rulings. You also have to take note on rulings too. So he's still figuring out what he's trying to fusion summon. I could call him out, but he's trying to go into Rinbrum, but I let him decide because he hasn't fusion summoned yet, which he's fusion summoning now, which is Rinbrum. And after he summons Rinbrum, I'm going to use Birth, like I already mentioned. Simply go after Mercarrier, Albion, and Ecclesia. And this is the part where he claims that he's able to resolve his Mercury by letting him know that it's being banished face down. As a reminder, it's being banished face down, so it won't be able to get the effect. Alright. I'm just waiting on what my opponent's next decision is. So he's going to attack my Fenrir with his Mirror Jet. I'm cool with that. That's fine by me. The reason why I said sorry because I was kind of busy. I was away from my keyboard, so AFK basically because I had to close the door and buy my house. All right, definitely not something I want to draw into because it's pretty late to do so. Because I usually search with Ogre if I already drew into it, but usually I would rather search it than draw into it. But that's not gonna matter since I already have Fenrir, Birth, and 2 Pressure Plant in hand. So obviously I'm going to search for the Rise Hearts in case, then use Birth's effect, special summon Unicorn, then I'm going to use Unicorn's effect to search for Theosis, then I'll activate Theosis. Okay, he could have changed my Mirror Jade, so I'm surprised he didn't. Then I'll use Tyraniman's Kashtira's effect, the middle top 3 cards of his deck instead. Basically, essentially the best cards in his deck. Almost the best cards, like very handy cards that he milled from his deck to the grave. That could really hurt me, but I managed to get rid of those cards. So before I use Rise Heart's effect, I'm gonna Xyz summon for Shangira for the main reason why, so I can banish Big Bang from my main deck, and then Big Bang will be able to resolve. So I detach one of my materials. I have the option whether I want to special summon or add it to my hand, but instead I'm going to special summon the Unicorn, activate another Pressure Plant just in case, go into Scareclaw Kashtira. So I'm going to banish another card, which is Theosis, to retrieve Big Bang. Going to go into my other Xyz, which is Big Eye. Just fine. I'm going to target his Mirror Jade. Okay, he's a response, that's fine. Sure, he's going to return the Fenrir. And then when he attacks, I'm going to banish his Mirror Jade face down. Essentially going to take, how many attributes do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 1100. even though it's probably not the correct amount of life points, but either way, I just let it out. The reason why I even let him off the hook, because eventually, I'm pretty sure with the advantage I already have, there's really no way he can make a comeback at this point. So he's got to, unless he has any card that can pretty much help him, essentially help him. Especially since he has no cards in field, one card in hand. If he essentially has a card that can help, either way it won't be enough. Because if Konami were to print a card where it says you play that one card and you're at a huge disadvantage, which basically allows you to basically rid your opponent's field, and then you search a card with it, that would be crazy. If there was, it would have to have a massive restriction. Meaning you have to wait, maybe depending on the number of life points, or if your opponent controls more cards than you do, or you gotta pay a certain number of life points for it to have a hefty restriction. But the only way it will be able to like be legal somehow in the TCG or OCG is that it has to have a heavy impact as well as heavy cost towards the player who uses the card. So what I mean is like a card that can either force you to pay a lot of life points, get rid of most of the cards from your deck, graveyard, or hand, whatever, or if you don't manage to kill your opponent, you lose the duel. That kind of effect. But it all depends what Konami decides to print. I haven't heard. I don't know a card that even exists in Yu-Gi-Oh! And eventually, who knows whether it will be made. So whether it'll happen. So he's gonna use a Rinbrum's effect. So basically, it only activates during my turns. So he can basically target either Fallen Albaz or itself. He banishes one target. He can summon the Fallen Albaz, or he can summon the Striking Dragon. So, but then when he does, I'll use their trigger effects. And this is where he defeats those. It wouldn't matter whether whether he miscalculated on the life points. Considering the field already had, and he literally had no cards on the field, and he drew his first card, and only had one card in hand. It was essentially enough for him to admit defeat. So, because the only way he managed to beat me, we managed to make a comeback. If he drew a card that I mentioned that could single-handedly get rid of all the cards in my field or most of the cards on my field and be able to take a card from his deck, graveyard, or banish zone straight to the field, or duplicates. Or if he managed to get at least duplicates on the field with just one card, as he manages to essentially remove basically my board or almost my entire field for him to make a comeback, even with just that one card. But I don't know, again, I don't know the card that exists. I know there are a lot of board breakers that do exist, but not one that I mentioned. And I don't want to go too long with this. It was just to get my point across, because I don't know for in the future whether a card like that may exist, or if Konami decides to print it. But overall, you guys, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Be sure to check for more upcoming content later in the future. Be sure to check your notifications. Comment, like, subscribe. Thank you.